Hey everyone, this tutorial is for getting a vehicle into the 3D Rad engine using the existing tools, and this tutorial will be somewhat kind of like a cooking show tutorial where everything's kind of pre-baked. I've gone ahead and already kind of gotten the vehicle ready, so I'm going to go through the major steps without actually going through every single step. So let's go ahead and start with the Steph car, provided by Steph Odie, I believe his name is. He has it up online for free, so I figured it'd be a great vehicle to use. And so let's get started. The first thing, like we had, was like a vehicle broken apart into sections. What you need to do is when you define the body, this is actually the body of the vehicle, and then you have the wheel selections for front, back, and because this wheel, the rear end of the vehicle is kind of exposed, we're going to have an option to actually use a suspension piece. And you notice it's not lined up in max, but we don't have to worry about that quite yet. We'll get to fixing that in a moment. So one thing I like to do when I set the vehicle up is try to set up the wheels to center. So let me isolate this and go left view. You can see I've set up this little piece of geometry plane, and what I did was I lined up the edge here to the edge on the other side and used the tool to affect pivot and center to object by just going like that and getting the center. And when I was doing the vehicle, you're probably not going to have it perfectly lined up. You might have it off a little bit. By using this tool here, you can line up and say, oh, right, well, this is where this object is. Well, then I can grab everything and link it to this helper plane to move to the center of the world. That. Just by setting it to 0. So now I moved everything, and then I could delete it when I'm done. So let's go back and undo all that. Alright, so we can get rid of this for now. I'll leave that in there for when you guys download the file. Alright, now getting to the next part is setting up the pieces that you'll need to work with the vehicle. Of course, you're going to have a visual piece like this right here just for the body. And when you go to an external piece, let's start with the rear wheel. I've already defined the rear wheel, and because of the way the tool is set up right now, it doesn't flip the wheel to the other side, so you actually have to make the wheel universal for both sides. So go ahead and get your wheel set up, and naming conventions are very important because when you define a vehicle, like this one is called Steph Odie. The idea is the body of the vehicle is called Steph Odie _A. That defines the engine will define A is the body of the vehicle. You can also use a B object too, but we don't need that one. So there's several objects that you have a choice to use, but you don't need to. So we get to the wheel. The rear wheel is classified as _D. It's the D object, and it needs several objects to work with it. If you want to have a shadow for it, you need a D _shadow to associate with the object. And of course you need collision for the wheels. So what we do is we set up a sphere that matches up to the collision of the wheel and lines it up right to center. So, and I'll get to the exporting in a moment. Next piece is the mass of the wheel. And what I usually do is I take the exact same wheel and I just copy it and make sure you add an extra underscore to the name, because the mass is 2 underscores and the collision is 1 underscore. So you have your collision, and I like to change the color just to so I get a better idea what I'm doing. And I will align this to my wheel that I'm working this to, and just use the scale tool to get it inside of the wheel a little bit so it balances out fairly nicely. That way you can use that as a mass on your wheel with minimal amount of shake. and it'll be pretty balanced as soon as you get it in with no issues. And then of course we got the front wheel, same deal, created a shadow. Also, a small bit of information to also point out: when you're exporting models, you're exporting them to the center of the world, not the center of the object. So if I were to export this rear wheel, the object, if I exported it where it was, it would be offset by that distance from 0. So what you have to do is move it to center, and what I like to do is hide my main object from what I'm doing. So I'll go ahead and just bring up the scale and just move the center. That's why I move everything off in one direction, so all I gotta do is just reset the number. And okay, now I have my object. Now I'm going to go ahead and export. And because this is the D wheel or the rear wheel, go ahead and set it to that. And double check your settings and go ahead and export. Done. And then I just undo, move it back, and then unhide everything when I'm done. And that's what I do to export each piece of these, because each piece will need to move the center just like that and export it the same way. And that's why I save the name of the file, and actually including the .x in the extension. So all I gotta do is, when I'm doing the next one, I want to click the shadow, highlight the word, copy it, move it to center, export, move it back, go to the next one, copy the word, copy it, move it to center, export, so on and so forth. Getting to the collision of the vehicle, it's a little bit of a different beast. I've already gone ahead and created it. Now you're going to notice that I didn't exactly line up everything perfectly, and you really don't for collision detection. The games usually fake it, and using spheres sometimes sounds like it can be a little bit more difficult, but it's not really that bad. It's quite easy, and defining a shape and whatnot. So you just have to work with the system. It's currently what we use, and it's not too bad.